T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Shout out to US ARC and all US ARC members. If you don't know what US ARC is, don't be ashamed. Just go ahead and click the third link in the description below. See what US ARC is all about, okay? You never know when legislations are going to hit your backyard, so that's why it's very important to consider becoming a US ARC member today. These numbers really do matter, and they look at it for consideration when it comes to battling legislation. So first and foremost, thank you, Phil Goss. Thank you to anybody out there who partners up and volunteers with US ARC organization. Thank you for anyone out there who's a US ARC member. And if you can't become a US ARC member today, please talk about it on your platforms. Let your neighbors know, let all your pet stores know what US ARC is here for, and it's here to fight for our animal rights. Thank you to every US ARC member and US ARC supporter out there. True.
All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Krista with the Girls Who Love Reptiles podcast on the one and only Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. We're already on episode 29. I'm super excited to have our guest from the Wild Type podcast on this evening. Get some girl time in, talk about podcasting and reptiles. So what better way to spend your Sunday evening? If you are new here, go ahead and hit that notification bell and give our podcast stream tonight a like, just so you get updated on all of the podcasts that we're doing. We have one every single day of the week, bringing to you content from a wide variety of species. And if you're also looking for a Patreon group to join, I highly recommend the Trap Talk Patreon group, bringing to you a lot of keepers from a variety of species. I've learned so much in the past year. So if you have any questions, reach out to me, or we have the link in the description below. And we're kind of keeping this episode a little bit on a shorter one tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and bring our guests on, and we will go ahead and get started with that. I'll bring these guys on. How are you guys doing?
Hi. Happy Sunday.
Yeah. Happy Sunday. How's your weekend been?
It's been honestly nice and relaxing, but I also got some like enclosure stuff done that I was really excited
Very
about.
productive.
So, yeah.
Perfect. What type of enclosure?
I'm moving my African fat tail gecko into like a 4x2, but today I did the middle ground stage where I essentially built like a smaller version because she has yet to be on bioactive yet. So I want to make sure that she gets used to everything. So I think it was like a 20 or 30 gallon enclosure and just all bioactive. So super excited.
That's super exciting. I like the fat tails. I do leopard geckos myself, but I think the fat tails are really cute. There's some of the morphs I like I think the Oreo one, the black and white one I really like. So I've always kind of debate on getting some. I
just think they just have the sweetest personalities. I love them.
Hers is adorable.
She's so cute.
That's awesome. So yeah, thank you guys for coming on tonight and everything. We have some people in the chat. Oh, we got
Hello.
Python. Yeah, that's what I did this past weekend. So I just got back a few hours ago. It was a great show. Bob did a great job putting it on. He really cares about the vendors, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Show promoter. He really wants them to be as successful or as have a great time as they can at the show. So it's great.
It's amazing.
Highly recommend. You guys will have to check it down there. And there's a lot of good shows out there, but this one.
Our way.
Yeah. We're trying to do essentially like we have a couple that we always go to as much as we can, but then we're trying to do a few more travel ones every year. So
that's great. I think especially brought to me this past week, I think it's really important too, just because some of it is so much online and virtual, but seeing people in person and making those connections, like there's nothing that can really replace that. So
no, it's absolutely the best. We've made so many connections through expos. I mean, it's just the best way to get right into the hobby, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we'll get to meet you soon.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll be at Tinley. We talked a little backstage. You guys will be at Tinley. So yeah, I'm really coming up next month. Time flies. I was just thinking about this show. It's mid-March. So
1 month. Yeah,
One
March
month.
16th, right?
Mhm.
It's the 15th, 16th, I think.
Yeah.
So
so
We haven't been to Tenley in a few years either, so we're really excited to get going there.
yep.
I hope it'll
And
be
there'll be a
really
Green
busy.
River for like St.
Yes.
Patrick's, you
Yeah.
know, because it's that weekend and everything in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
didn't think about. I didn't even know they. I've never even heard of that till
Yeah,
now.
they do the whole, they like dye the whole river green. So we're gonna go check it out. It'll be
We will
fun.
be tourists.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been to Chicago a few times. Yeah, there's always I like the bean, and there's a lot of cool things to see in that town. So
For sure. Yeah.
sure. So yeah, we'll kind of get right in. Maybe tell us your story, your background, how you got into reptiles, and how you two kind of met, and how the Wild Type podcast kind of came about.
The origin story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Neptune the chameleon. I started posting online when I got Neptune the chameleon, and was not very creative in my username, and so I started posting pictures of him on the internet. A year goes by, and ended up doing YouTube because I kind of saw a gap. There was a lot of pet tubers, which was awesome, and they were doing like a bunch of different species, and one of them happened to be a chameleon, but no one had really just done chameleon content. And at the time, I was super active on the forums, like writing novels. I was like, well, what if I could just link to videos instead of having to sit here like typing the same questions and same answers? And so I started YouTube, TikTok came on, jumped on that, and then like that's kind of how I came to be where I'm now. So
yeah. And then I'm Lissa's lizards, but I also have snakes. So I'm not just Lissa's lizards. I used to be, but then I eventually got into snakes as well. And so, but I've been obsessed with reptiles since as long as I can remember. I was definitely like the epitome of a Steve Irwin kiddo. So I was raised on Steve Irwin and Shark Week. Those were like my two biggest things.
Love Shark Week. Love
growing up. Yeah, my dad and I would watch Shark Week. It was like a religious experience in my household. Like you have to watch it every single day. And so so I've just always been in that world and wanted to be a part of that world. And then I got my first reptile at 16, still have him. He's still kicking. He's almost 16 now this year. So he's wonderful. That was my leopard gecko.
Okay, I was about to ask what species.
So I started out with a Leo, and then after college, like once I got my first apartment, I just like went a little crazy. And basically once I realized like, oh, I'm an adult, I can
have your own money, you have your own space, no one's stopping you.
Why would I not? So I just kind of dove in head first, and now here I am with 10 critters. So
very cool. Very cool. So yeah, you guys are always, sounds like, into the reptiles kids. That's where I was too.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park was one of my favorite movies.
Big time.
So
I was a big dinosaur kiddo as well. I always loved
like
all the fossils and
hand in hand.
It's all in there.
And then the way that we met was I actually slid in her DMs. I know that's
interesting.
That sounds funny. So like I was a reptile keeper. I didn't have any reptile keeper friends or anything like that. And I followed her page. Was it Barney the chameleon at the time?
That's actually a good point. Yeah, I started out my second reptile was my panther chameleon. And so I started my Instagram out as him. It was just Barney the Cam. And then eventually once I got more pets, I was like, I should change my name. And so I changed the name to that. And then, but that's how she found me, was when I was still just like Barney the chameleon.
And so like she had a chameleon. I was on Instagram, stumbled across her page. And back in the day, she used to have like her location on there. And I was like, oh, I'm a 20-something girl in this city with a chameleon. She's a 20-something girl in this city with a chameleon. But at the time, I didn't post any pictures of my face. It was literally just Neptune. And so looking back on this, I'm like, she had no idea that I wasn't just some like creepy old guy or something hitting her up and being like, hey, like, how's it going?
I was way too trusting in my 20s.
But we got to chatting, and then I was like, would you want to meet up at like a local reptile shop? We did that. We started going to expos together, and then we became like real life friends. Many years later.
Really cool. That's awesome how that worked out.
That was in like 2018, 2017, I think. So it's been a hot minute. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So you went through the whole COVID thing, where then you really had to go online pretty much at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
So okay, so how you met, and then where did the idea for the podcasting come through? Like, what made you guys want to do that?
Honestly, we had kind of been thinking about it for like so it started out where our very first conversation on Instagram back in the day was something about like when maintenance people come into your apartment and you have a bunch of reptiles and they may or may not be on your lease. And so that was what she had slid into my DMs about, was like,
she had just like covered it, and my maintenance guys had come like the week prior. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, do you get super nervous and freaked out? Like, me too, kind of thing.
So that's what we had like started our friendship off of, was talking about that. And so we had thought, like, you know, maybe we could do some stuff together, like on our pages, on our, you know, channels and things like that. And so the first thing that we did is like a little bit of like a trial for the podcast was on her YouTube. We did a video talking of the two of us talking about, you know, like how to handle having reptiles in apartments. Like, what do you run into? How do you talk to the office about it? What does that look like? What mishaps can happen? Like,
what to look for, like finding things in leases. If you're not going to put it on your lease, like, how can you get away with it? You know, stuff like that. But it was just like the two of us in my reptile room, just side by side, no mics or anything, just like literally on 2 bar stools I had, just like chatting and just like saw how it did, and it like did pretty well. It was just the one and only guest like I've really ever had on my my chameleon page. But that was like summer, and then we went to Animal Con, and that's usually October, and there you're like really inspired by like other creators, and just like people who are like challenging things, pushing the hobby, trying new things. And we were trying with some folks who had like done podcasting. We go back to our hotel room and we're like, so
we should do this.
What if we did a reptile podcast, but not any reptile podcast, a girly reptile podcast? So then we talked to one of our good buddies, Bill Strand, who's been podcasting for decades, right? Wow. And we're like, hey, Bill, what do you
tell us all of your secrets?
What do you think of this idea? And he's like, this is brilliant. You guys have to do this.
We're like, okay.
So like, well, how do we do it? And so he like helped us out. And that was October, and the Wild Type podcast launched December of that year.
Yeah.
So December of 2023.
2023.
Yeah, because you guys are about a year. So yeah, you've done a little over a year. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And who would you say is like your target audience, and has that kind of evolved over the time, or have you kind of
I think the audience, at least tell me if I'm wrong, but I think our audience has stayed like pretty much the exact same for the most part, which is really cool. I would like to say, and you know, you can give your whole spiel too, but like for me, I wanted it to feel like we were sitting down chit-chatting with all the girls that love reptiles, and it was like a chit chat over coffee. And so we kind of refer to our audience as like the reptile girlies, and that's kind of like who we aim for. But you know, reptile girlies to us is very much like that includes everybody. You don't have to be a girl. We have male listeners as well.
Yeah.
And so,
20%.
Yeah. So
male listeners, the rest are ladies.
So
they're out there.
It's a lot of girls, but we love the guys too, you know, so it's definitely not just girls, but we did want to prioritize women just in the hobby, because it is such a male dominated hobby. There are so many dudes, and they're great. We love them, but you know, we did want a little bit of a space for the girls too. So
yeah, and I would say, sorry, my dad's texting me. I'm putting my phone on do not.
That's okay.
Disturb.
We're podcasting, Dad.
But because he's in my favorites, his text
came through.
But with that, so I agree with all that. But then also, as far as like the reptile hobby goes, a lot of our content is tailored towards like hobbyists and pet keepers, which I think is a little unique to reptile podcasts, whereas a lot of the podcasts are geared towards breeders or more of the science perspective, which is so valuable.
So important. Right. Yeah.
But we are not scientists.
Nope.
We are hobbyists. I'm a brand new breeder. I have a clutch hatching in the next like month or two. So
exciting.
We're so excited.
They're chameleons. Yeah. And so like I get to share like as a first time breeder what that looks like. And then we also have the perspective of being content creators, right? And like very much in the trenches with social media, which is a different experience than maybe breeders who do it for marketing purposes, but aren't necessarily in it on the content creation side. And so we have a lot of listeners who are aspiring content creators who are looking for advice on like how to land your first brand deal, how do you sustain creating content on a consistent basis when you also have a full-time job, right? So we have that perspective as well, which I think is a little bit unique when you kind of like look at the landscape of reptile podcasts.
Totally. That's awesome. There's a lot to unpack in that, because I kind of go off the fly when I do these, I think it's a lot more
Yeah.
organic and a lot more. I have like a basis of what I
For
want
sure.
to
Yeah.
ask, but then a lot of it stems from whatever conversation comes up. Yeah, I actually met some male fans this weekend. So Craig
Oh,
from
cool.
Bash Coder was like excited that you guys were coming on.
Aw.
And one thing he brought up, which is really interesting and something we don't see a lot in the podcasting game, is you guys are quote unquote like kind of like I mean, we're all podcasters, right? But you guys are in the same room. Like it's kind of that
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
old school sort of like vibe that we don't really see
Yeah.
much anymore. I mean, you still see like Joe Rogan or like Theo Von. Yeah, they're in like the
Mhm.
same room talking. But as far as like the Reptile podcast and a lot in general, I
Yeah.
think it's very.
Well,
I'm
and that
here,
was
you're there.
And that was something we had kind of like talked about in our planning. We pretty much went into like a deep, like 3-month planning stage.
Oh,
We
wow.
don't do things halfway. So we very
No.
much just like came up with an entire start to finish
Yeah.
how we're gonna do this.
But that was like part of our conversation at Animal Con was like, okay, how do we want to do this? Do we want to be, because the way we kind of looked at it was like mainstream podcasts, which are, you know, more like lifestyle-y type podcasts.
Mhm.
Like they're all, you know, pre-recorded. They all have like a studio like
Like a
setup
set,
and all that kind of stuff. We were like, do we want to go that route or do we want to go the live route? And we kind of looked at it, and that was one of our things. We were like, well, it seems like the reptile world does a lot of these live podcasts.
Right.
So if we did something different, it, you know, our hope was that it would stand out more.
Mhm.
And so, and
we
also,
have the ability to do it.
yeah, exactly.
Like
And
we're close.
and we also both, we just love the aesthetics. It's fun.
Yes.
So we love that stuff as well. So
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was discussing this with MJ a little bit too. Like the algorithm is kind of different on YouTube when it comes to
Mhm.
live versus pre-recorded. So we've been also discussing on maybe some pre-recorded options, like as we were discussing backstage, like if I travel and doing it too. But I think
Mhm.
the algorithm also kind of favors the pre-recorded.
I
Okay.
think YouTube just wants to do everything.
Yeah,
It
they want
wants
you
to
to
do
do all the
lives, it
things.
wants to do shorts, it wants to do pre-recording, it wants you to post 6 times a day, it wants you to have like 6 arms coming out so you can do all this at the
Yeah.
same time.
You're
And
like, I have a life to live.
so my thought is
It's a
like,
beast.
yeah,
Like,
whatever you
oh,
can
yeah.
do that's sustainable. And the pre-recorded is sustainable
Yes.
for us with our schedules and
Mhm.
everything, because we can find that time. But it could be a different time
Yeah.
during the week. And so like and then that gives us the few days to
Mhm.
edit it. We do our
Mhm.
shorts, our social media posts, like we get in a really good cadence, and we planned a schedule prior to even launching the
Yeah.
podcast. We went through roles and responsibilities of like, you're going to do this, I'm going to do this, and like how we're going to divide and conquer, because you know firsthand running a podcast is a lot of
Yeah.
work.
Yes. And
That's it.
Yes.
That's it. That's all we need.
Period.
I was asked to do this. I was like, sure, no problem. I got it. But then, like every week, like it's already in the middle
It's
of
a
the week,
lot.
and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I just did one of these, and it's not
Yeah.
like I enjoy it. I look forward to it, but
Us too,
you
for
have
sure.
everything else going on in your
Oh,
life.
yeah.
Sometimes you're just like running around with your like chicken with your head
100%.
drop on, making
That's
sure
what
you
it
have
is.
guests
All the
coming
time.
on and-
Constantly. We've even had to, I think she said this earlier before we started, but we've even had to like double up on episodes before. Like we'll film like 2 in a day sometimes because, you know, if I know that her schedule is slammed that week and then I'm busy the following week, it's like, okay, well, we gotta, you know, plan ahead. And so
Yeah.
that was another reason we were like, we can't do the live thing. We can't guarantee that we'll be sitting down every single week.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
know.
That is a
There's
big
definitely pros and cons to both though, for sure.
Yeah, whatever you can be consistent on, and whatever you enjoy doing, like there's something fun of the live streams because you get to have follow-up
Yes.
questions or like interaction with the chats. We don't get people's responses until like 2 weeks later
Yeah.
because we do early access episodes. So we're filming at least 2 weeks
Mhm.
in advance of when our episodes go out. So we'll say something or respond to current events, and then we wait because we don't get to hear anyone else's responses till the episode comes out. And then sometimes it's not as relevant or
Not
as
as
on point.
timely.
Mhm.
But then we can have these like curated episodes, or we can like have these dedicated segments. And so there's definitely pros
Yeah.
and cons.
Yes.
But we have had to though scramble at least once or twice when, you know, something's happened and we're like, no, we have to be relevant. So like we're gonna get this done in
Pull it all
3
right in.
days.
Yep.
We're gonna like figure it out just so that we make sure that we're like relevant at the time that it makes sense. So
For
we've
sure.
definitely scrambled for that as well.
Sure. That's what I look up to MJ a lot too, because if stuff happens, he's like, I'm going live.
Yeah.
I'm going live tonight. I'm doing it. I'm just like, That's awesome. You do.
I know, and he's got the
he's
kids
just super
stuff
passionate
too.
about
Jeez.
his life. But yeah, super passionate. I look up to him for that too. But yeah, he's one of those where like, hey, if something's going down, he's going live. Like,
It's so impressive. Love that.
are there any other like things you guys maybe didn't realize when starting the podcast that you've kind of learned, and how have you kind of adjusted with that?
Everything. No, I would say the social clips, I think we may have underestimated initially. So we do our filmed episodes, we like edit those go on Spotify, YouTube. It is a video podcast, right? So we do have to like sync the audio with the video, and so there is some work to do that, prepping the thumbnails, descriptions, tagging, like there's a good chunk of work just on the front end. But because we're both content creators and have our own social media platforms, and we see the advantage, I guess, or the opportunity, maybe is a better word, of like pushing your stuff on social to like get new listeners. So we really wanted to prioritize having a social presence. That means YouTube Shorts, Reels, TikToks, stories, in-feed posts, like on top of everything else we're doing. And we're like, oh, we're content creators. We know what we're doing. We've been doing this for years. We'll whip this up. And then we're like, oh God, it's too much. But to do that on top of it was like a lot. Yeah. So we've recently been utilizing some like clip editors that are incredibly helpful and help us with, it's like AI, different stuff that helps us. Oh my gosh, it has been a game changer for just how much we've been able to do. That's only like the last couple months, because I remember she was manually going through
so
and
hard.
like doing every single.
My goodness.
Yeah. And she's like, I am not okay.
I was not good for like.
Yeah, that I can imagine. I cannot imagine doing. That's something I've actually been doing the past few months as well. So I help run the Prep Talk Instagram as well. So that's who I'm posting with them.
Awesome.
I've been posting reels at least a couple times a day. So what AI have you been using? Because we've been looking into that. Do we use Opus as well?
That's what we're using. Yeah, it's been really helpful, and it's pretty simple too. Like once you figure it out, I mean, some of the clips that it spits out are not top tier, but most of them are good. So like you kind of have to sort through. It'll give you like 20 or 30 to like look through, and then you can go in and manually, like if I know, you know, oh, the line that I said right before it cut it off is way better, so I'll go in and manually fix it or whatever. But it is really helpful.
And it has a scheduler feature.
Oh my God, that's the biggest game changer of them all.
Figure that out, where you can schedule where it uploads it.
Yeah,
it schedules it to all three: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and I don't have to deal with it. It's amazing.
I'm gonna have to figure that.
You should look into that.
You can DM us after.
We'll chit chat.
I set little I don't know what is on my alarms on my phone, like when to post, because I don't
know. No, girl, absolutely not.
No, especially if you already have it. You already have the tool. You're already using it, so you can schedule all of it. So
that was the biggest game changer of them all.
I will do that
for sure.
Work happens. I'm at work. Sometimes I can't get it right.
Same.
We're all humans with jobs.
Those are the big ones. What are some other? Do you have anything that like?
I think just like for like us and our audience, like just learning to be like more open and vulnerable with conversations has been cool.
Yes.
And also hard, and also being confident while doing that is something we've learned over time. And I like to think that we've gotten a lot better at that since our first episode. But
it's one thing to like share a care sheet or to talk about like reptile burns or something that's very like transactional, right? Of like, here's the information, here's our experiences, here's our advice, you know, kind of leave it at that. But we did an episode a couple weeks ago of like the struggles of like having reptiles when life gets hard, right? And like that was something we were both really nervous for, you more so than me, because you like poured your guts on the episode. But like the feedback we got has been overwhelmingly
so positive,
right? Of like feeling seen, feeling heard, the struggles we have, not just as reptile keepers, but like female reptile keepers, like you know more than anyone, like the nuances that come with that, and just to feel seen and heard, and just like chat about life and like getting our nails done. As like silly as that sounds, like our listeners are now invested and they're like, what design do you have? I'm like, this is the best.
I literally like almost cried. We did a Galentine's live stream last week, and somebody in the chat was like, Lisa, what are your nails this week? Because we talk about that every time we get our nails done. And I was like, oh my God, you guys actually care. That's so nice.
Sounds like so frivolous from like an outsider's perspective
Totally.
of like, we're talking around here now, but like we have that connection, we have those relationships, and like we're able to foster this community. And I think both of us hoped that that's what we would be able to do, but like to actually see it come to fruition has been a pleasant surprise, and like we're doing it, you know, and it's really cool to see.
It's been so fun.
For sure. Yeah, that's something I ran to this past weekend too. Like people coming up to me and said that they watched the show, they enjoyed the show. And that just meant so much.
That makes it all worth it. Absolutely.
That's why I do it. Granted, there's things that, you know, helps me with my presence and like public speaking. So it's helping people there. But I really do it so that people can learn and to get the hobby, women, of course. But yeah, a lot of people came up to me and said that this weekend. I just really,
that's so cool.
Really met a lot. I said I was like interviewing for a job. They're like, did you get the job? And like, they're like,
and you're like, oh my God, you actually listened. This is crazy.
Yeah. Well, it was great. And then one of them, it's so weird. It happened at the same time. I was at Adeline Robinson's booth buying.
I love her.
Art. And there was another lady there buying art. She's like, yeah, I heard you on the Trap Talk Network, that podcast with me and her. She's like, yeah, I heard you guys like this past weekend. So I wanted to come and get some art. Cool. And I was standing right there and she's like, yeah, you really won that. It was just a really cool moment.
I swear, the reptile world is this big. It's so tiny. Like once you really get into it, like the amount of people you'll run into, you're like, whoa.
Yeah. And I think that just brings up that as podcasters, like some of us may see it as sometimes competition with a lot of people like out there, but I think we need to just come together and kind of share, because we're all, it's such a small world, like being divided or being negative about other people doing it really doesn't help in a way. So that's something.
No, it's like we're all connected through the animals.
And you see with breeders too, they get super competitive and very like, you know, and I mean, I understand that, like, especially if it's a business and it's your livelihood, but at the end of the day, like, isn't the goal to help welcome people into the hobby, and isn't the goal to set them up for success to like have healthy animals and to like want to stay active and involved? And we also see this as content creators, right? Of like people who come out with their pitchforks in the comment sections of videos after new keepers, and it's like, okay, I understand like why you're upset because of X and Y reasons, but let's lead with grace and compassion and understanding, and recognize that none of us were born knowing how to do any of this, right? We all had to learn from someone at some point.
Had to learn somehow.
Yeah, and that's true for podcasters, breeders, creators, keepers, like everyone involved in this hobby. And so I think that's a good reminder just for all of us of just like, be nice.
Yeah, we're all in the same community. We all love the same things.
Correct. It just doesn't make sure to divide. And we keep bringing up the word content creator. So creator, right? It's very individualistic. Like everybody has their own styles, the way it comes on differently. So even though we're under the whole umbrella of Reptile Podcast, it's still very much different based on people's individual styles. Creates variety in its own sense.
Everybody has their own vibe. Everybody has their own like branding, their own view, like their own talking points. Like there's so many different like valuable opinions and things to bring to the hobby. So it's like, it doesn't, I don't know. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to be overly competitive in any way.
The more the merrier.
Truly.
Like, and I've had this happen where like I very much have like, I'm using the word monopoly, and I don't mean that any type of way. There's not many chameleon content creators, okay? There's like
3.
There's like 2 or 3 of us, and like that's about it, right? And I'll have people reach out to me like, hey, I think I want to start a channel about chameleons. Like, is that okay? Like, is that gonna? I'm like, please do
it.
Like, the more the merrier. And honestly, if that can take some off my plate, I'm like, please.
Yeah.
And as long as you have good intentions and like you're taking the time to make sure that like the information you're putting out there is the best to your knowledge, and like that's all you can ask. And if there's 15 other girly reptile podcasts that pop up over the next couple years, like
that'd be great.
Fantastic, right? Because then that shows more and more people who feel like they have a community and within an amazing community, and like how special is that, right?
Yeah, truly.
Right. Yeah, super. Yeah, that's really, really cool. So
I'm getting excited. I'm like,
you're like, come on, girls, let's go. Because that was a topic I wanted to bring up too. Is just women in the hobby in general. Have you kind of seen anything that's changed when you first got in to now on?
Yes, time. We've talked about this many times.
Okay.
Yeah, we're happy to dive in. I mean, just anecdotally, no science to back this up, but like, more ladies, maybe, you know,
100%.
like in
Yeah.
the hobby. Like, I feel like we just have more female keepers who are interested and who are getting excited. I think going bioactive and having plants has attracted a lot of people, because if you're a plant keeper, then maybe that gets you excited about like building out a bioactive enclosure. I think having content creators, just the reach, right, of like bringing new people in can be really big. I'll let you speak to.
I also personally think that TikTok coming around, you know, in like 2019, 2020, you know, when I hopped on there were a handful of reptile creators who were already on there, but now there's so many reptile TikTokers, and a lot of them are women. And it probably skews a little younger, like in the, you know, 20s and 30s, but like there's so many more women, and I found a lot of them on TikTok. And so I think that platform also lended itself for more girls to kind of jump into the hobby as well. And then something that is really cool that I can say, I can't say which reptile brand, but I was working directly with, you know, a reptile brand and having conversations with them. And we were talking about the fact that, you know, there's clearly a lot more women in the hobby these days. And they let me know that they actually have data going back the last like 10 to 20 years that really does show that like the correlation, obviously correlation does not equal causation, you know, but like it does correlate that more women joining the hobby and the standards of care have gotten better as well, which is really cool. And so, you know, and these were two guys that work at a reptile brand that were like, no, like we see the correlation, like it's there, like it's really there, which is super cool. So we love more girls in the hobby always. So
yeah, I think we just bring like a different skill set, not to say that
for
guys
sure
are, you know, bad skills or anyway, but it's just it's a complementary skill set based on, you know, nurturing ability and just caring. And that's why interesting too on the vet side of things, like it used to be, you know, if you walk through the hallways at the school, all the classes were predominantly male, like very few women. And then it's slowly over time, it's changed where it's pretty much 90% women now.
Oh, that's so cool. I love hearing that.
Yeah. And it'd be interesting to compare that to the human medicine side too. I don't know. Maybe it's still an even split. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. I think it'd be interesting to see that too.
Yeah, that's super interesting.
I think you see that kind of, especially with animals, and that caring sort of nurturing ability kind of translate there. So yeah, it makes sense with the reptile hobby. So I'm excited to see more women too. And as far as when I've been into it, I haven't really gotten much pushback or negativity. Initially at some shows, like I wouldn't get like the eye. They would always kind of look at, you know, the guy next to me or something like that when really like, hey, I'm the
boss.
I'm here.
I'm the one buying the animal here. Like, come on, give me. But I don't really notice that much. I think that's part of it being out there too, and people knowing like,
for sure.
And I think sometimes it's like a subtle thing. People don't really realize they're doing it, like the subtle cues or the nonverbal cues they're giving. So I think
there may be some assumptions on like what species you keep.
So
like Lissa, for example, has a yellow anaconda, and like people would just like assume we've got like bear dragons or geckos, and this is not a diss on beardies or
not at
geckos.
all.
Okay, to be very clear,
I've got all of them except a beardie, so I've got all the things.
Like the typical like entry reptile, right? Of like your first one that you get is usually one of those species. And I'm like, nah, mine was a chameleon, right? And she's like, I'm over here with my yellow anaconda. You know, so it's like you kind of have to, like, I feel like sometimes have to put your cool kid card on the table when you're talking to get like a little bit of street cred. I don't know if guys experience that, but like we've definitely felt that, especially going to shows of like, no, like I know what I'm talking about, you know?
Like I've definitely had situations where like I can tell that I'm not being taken seriously until I say that I have a yellow anaconda. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, lights are on. We're home.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, I was just as experienced 3 seconds ago. You just weren't listening until I said that cool species, but okay. Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of that, but I mean, over time, you know, it gets less and less. So.
Yeah, I think as you put yourself out there more, people associate. Then it kind of comes. And I had Meg on from Anaconda, and she talked about like similar things, which is interesting. Her getting into it, being like, "Oh, snakes are too big for you to handle," and are you sure about that? Like just kind of like the questioning thing. So I think that just comes back to us being just standing tall in what species we want to keep and believe in ourselves. And
absolutely.
it'll all work well.
There's nothing holding us back, that's for sure.
We're kind of, I was also looking at the time, we're about halfway, so I'm going to do a short commercial real quick, and then we'll kind of come back and finish things off. So I'll take
Sounds good.
We'll be here.
banner. Yeah, don't go anywhere. No, it'll just be a few minutes. All right, we'll be right back.
For the #1 PVC enclosures in the reptile game, no better place to visit than Focus Cube Habitats. Excited for today's sponsor, Focus Cube Habitats, #1 enclosures in the reptile game by far. Everything you see behind me are 3x2x2 PVC design enclosures by Steven and Ashley over at Focus Cube Habitats. They're based out of Texas. If you head over to their website, you can select from over 30 plus different enclosure designs that they've done. Two of the hardest working people in the reptile hobby today, and I'm so excited to add more Focus Cube enclosures. So much again, Steve and Ashley, I appreciate the 5+ years of partnerships that we've had together. Looking forward to growing more. Head over to focuscubehabitats.com, head over to their YouTube channel, subscribe, and check them out on Instagram. Thank you so much, Focus Cube Habitat. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas CHONDROS. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX CHONDROS on Instagram, and also head over to Mark's website, see what he has available green tree python wise, and be ready for quite the 2025 green tree python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the green tree python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the green tree python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Treat.
All right, we are back. He's so talented. He's so talented.
He's so good. I just love I love his voice, how he does all of it.
Yeah, he's really like energized. It was so
yeah.
cool. This weekend I was helping do a vlog, and I was behind the table kind of talking about the snakes. He's like, we have to restart this, Krista. You have no energy right now. And so we had to like restart. I had to be like, look at this snake. Look at it. You know, it's just I'm more introverted. So again, it's part of like the skill set that
for sure
I've kind of developed.
Oh yeah. I mean, I look back at some of my original TikTok videos from 2021 and I'm like, oh my God, I was so far from confident. Wow. It's just wild how much like you'll change from like the beginning of starting to do something like this and putting yourself out there towards like where you're at in the future. It's so cool.
Yeah. Confidence, I would say, is the biggest thing that I've been kind of working on with this. It's funny. Some people have reached out and be like, yeah, your voice kind of changes a little bit. I'm like, how? Which way?
What do you mean?
So quiet, then you get loud again. That's something I've always struggled with public speaking. Like even when I do seminars at work, like I'll talk and then like at the end of the sentence, I just get a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
It's like a subconscious thing. I just don't even realize I'm doing it.
Oh, for sure. No, I just have to learn to have a filter. That's my main thing.
Like, do we really need to say
everything?
Is there anything you've done to help kind of build that confidence, or is that something that you think have just came from over time and just doing this over and over again?
For me, it was just repetition, for sure. And I will say I was a little bit lucky in the sense that before we started the podcast, we were both already doing content a lot. So I had built up a lot of confidence in that regard, but doing it in a podcast platform is very different than like short form video clips. It's like short form video clips, I can, push the button, turn the energy on, and then I pause and then I turn it off. And that's like very different than like sitting here for an hour or so with like a friend going back and forth. Like that's a totally different kind of energy. And so learning that difference between content creation through podcasting, but just the general confidence was truly just over time, I think.
For me, it was co-hosting. Yeah. So like we were individual content creators, but we're like, you're in your room at your place, I'm in my room at my place, filming separately. Then we would hang out as friends, right? So then we're just like gabbing, chatting, whatever's fine. But then to be in this setting where you're like doing a hybrid of the two, where you're on, but you have to be mindful of someone else and like knowing what they're saying. And there was definitely the first few episodes where like I would talk a lot, or she would talk a lot, or I would interrupt, or she would interrupt, and we kind of had to like, or she was leading the episode, I was and that's just something we kind of had to work through, which was a different dynamic than just as friends.
Totally.
Because you don't notice that stuff when you're
Mhm.
just like hanging out with your girlfriend or whatever. And should I clarify? I said girlfriend. I'm like, we're not dating. I don't know, like your friend.
We have
girl. I don't know.
We have had people ask us that. And we're like, no, I'm married. I have a husband.
I just like, but I said slid in the DMs, and then I was like, I feel like if no one knows us,
we should clarify we're not together in
and
that
people
way.
have asked us as shows. I'm like, no.
Hilarious.
So
No.
to be so clear, like
We're just besties.
But anyways, but like your friend who's a girl, you know, but like that's a very different dynamic, and that's something that we had to learn over time. And I would say it's probably like, I don't know, maybe episode 15.
Mhm.
I feel like it's kind
Yeah.
of very specific. I feel like a few episodes, right, where I felt like we got in a group, and then the confidence came with it because the audience was like, we really like this, and listeners were like, wow, like I look forward to these segments, and so that also gives you kind of the assurance of like you're doing something right.
Yeah, like literally just last week in our live stream, I got the first confirmation that like they do love us talking about our nails. And it's like, great. I liked talking about that, but now I know that y'all are paying attention. That's even cooler.
Yeah.
So it's like we get that confirmation like slowly over time, and that really helps a lot. But those first like couple months, we definitely had a couple conversations like after filming where one of us would come to the other and be like, hey, so I kind of like felt like you talked over me a lot, and that wasn't super cool. And like,
but we've been friends for like over 5 years,
long time,
already,
yeah.
right? So that was also something when we decided to do the podcast of like, okay, could this change the dynamic of our friendship?
Yeah.
Are we okay giving feedback or having those uncomfortable conversations where like as a friend you wouldn't even like you wouldn't bring it up, but like now that you're in the public eye, use that loosely, but like now that other people can see it and you're presenting yourself as a united front together, I'm representing her just as much as she's representing me.
So that was definitely a dynamic shift that we had to learn.
For sure. That's something I have also gotten used to over time as well. I think the hard part is with me bringing on guests, it's a different guest each week, right?
Totally.
It is its own challenge in itself a little bit because they
you have to kind of feel them out, they feel you out, you kind of like work through it, and it's all live.
There's no way.
There's no, like, at least we know that if we accidentally say something that we don't want on the internet, we can be like, oh, quick edit.
Yes, that's true.
We've only had to do that like once or twice, but
what I usually do is I'll see if they've been on any other podcasts and I'll watch it, and then I'll kind of see like what their style is. Because I said I do this on the fly, but sometimes if they answer like one word answers, I will have a set of like questions to like pull it out and ask. Right. Sometimes it's hard for me to think on the fly.
Well, and sometimes it's hard too, because like obviously we're podcasters, so like we fully get like the cadence and like we're gonna ask questions too and be interactive. But if you're interviewing somebody who doesn't usually do a lot of podcasts, or even if they do some, it's like they're not the ones podcasting, they're the ones being interviewed, so they might not be used to like how it works as well,
or being on camera,
that too,
where like they're not used to normally being on camera. For us, it's like
we're super used to it.
Like you know, it's old news for us, but that's not true for everyone, and like that alone can make someone maybe like say things differently than they would have, you know, if you were just like in person chatting. So there's a lot of nuances to it. So a lot of admiration for you and your ability to kind of like navigate that, but keeps you on your toes too, though, right? Yeah. Like I'm sure that's a big piece of it.
I mean, we did the only times we've had guests is when we've been in person at expos. And so our very first time that we interviewed someone, I did not know what I was doing. And I just got so nervous that I just immediately asked them the first question right out of the gate and didn't even like do like a lead up of like, this is so-and-so and this is what she does. Like tell us more. I was just like, so here's the question. And I was like, oh, I'm so dumb.
She answered, and I was like, and would you mind telling us a little about yourself, and like who you are?
I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh. So just props to you. There's a huge skill set that comes with interviewing. That's a whole other side of it.
It's taken some time. There's some episodes where I'm like, I feel like it just didn't flow well, but I'm like, there's nothing I could really do to change that, because as you were saying, some guests just aren't.
If it makes you feel better, we've had those too, where we're like, well, that was just chaos in an episode. That made no sense. There was no flow. It was like a jumbled mess, but like whatever.
It's done. It's out there.
Yeah.
But when it goes really well, you feel like this immense
Yes.
high from it. Like you're like,
100%.
I sometimes like I do them late, but if I have a really good episode, I can't go to sleep I
Yeah.
stay up super late because I'm just so
Oh,
like jazzed and
interesting.
pumped. So
Yeah.
it's been
That makes
kind of
sense.
hard because like I'm like I need to sleep, but
Like I have to go to sleep.
You're like replaying the conversation, you're like, and that was really good, and that was really good, and I really liked that point, and you're like, go sleep.
Yes. Yep.
exactly. Or if it doesn't go well, you're like, man, I should have.
Then you're thinking about all the cringy things that you said in your head. Yeah, we do that too.
It's
Don't you
okay.
worry.
I'll be cringing at the DM and girlfriend comment for like the next 3 days, so it's fine.
We occasionally will text each other like a day or two after we filmed and be like, hey, so I've been thinking for 2 days straight about that stupid thing that I said. Was that as stupid as I thought it was? Or
And most times it's not.
most of the time it's not
I'm like,
at
no,
all.
you were literally fine.
Yeah,
Like,
and I'm
it
like,
did not come across like.
oh, I was just in my head about it. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Which is what she's gonna tell me when I asked her, was it weird that I made that comment? She's like, no, it was fine. Like,
Little
that's
thumbs
just what
up
happened.
thing.
Oh
I
yeah,
know.
sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, I find myself doing that even like, in person conversations too. Like I'll walk away from it and I'll be doing
Yeah.
something else and I'll replay like
Oh,
what
yeah.
I said in my mind. Like, did I talk too much? I don't know why it just,
Yep.
just happens. I think it just
Oh yeah.
personality overthinker.
I think we can all relate to that one.
Yep, guilty.
Strange. Yeah. We're coming up on the last 15 minutes here because I want to keep you guys on time. I'll check the chats if there's any questions here. A lot of pretty. Can you guys see the chats or?
Yes,
It's just very
it's,
small.
it's a little far. It's a little far away from us, but yes.
I bring them up if there's any questions, but it looks like it's just pretty good
Cool.
feedback on you guys too, and like the positive mindset for everybody having a seat at the table. Yeah, I think that's
Love it. Love it. Love it. There's room for everyone.
So true.
Yep. Okay, cool. No super big questions, but everybody's having a good time in the chat. So one thing I kind of want to finish up with, you don't have to tell all your secrets or anything, but where do you see like the podcast kind of going in the next, do you have any goals that you want to hit or like maybe newer things?
I feel like we need to like brainstorm some answers because we often get asked this from
Yeah.
our guests, which is like a very fair question.
It's such a normal
But
question.
then our response is very lame in that we're just like, keep doing what we're doing,
Yeah.
like just continue to grow and build momentum. I think as content creators, like we do love hitting milestones, right? Like follower counts and things like that. That's never our goal and there's never like a rush to it, but it is kind of like a fun feeling when you're like,
it's cool.
ooh, you like hit these milestones. So like we're trying to hit 2K on YouTube, so like subscribe. No, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like it's any milestones that we hit numbers wise are always really cool, and like I know I'll get really really excited if we ever hit like 5K on YouTube or like 10K on YouTube. Like we'd be thrilled. Yeah, like it's anything like that. But for me, for us, for the podcast is to be able to vend at more shows as the podcast. So we've gotten to do that once before at an ARBC, and so and we'll be doing it again in March. And so we're slowly trying to do more of that, and that's been really fun. And so for me, that's one of my goals is just getting to go to more shows and getting to hopefully meet more of our audience along the way. Like that's really my favorite thing is just getting to meet like our audience, the reptile girlies, like in person. That's genuinely one of my favorite things. So any chance we can get to go do that, travel more, it's always really fun.
Building the community, right? Building on the momentum. I feel like the last couple months, especially, we've seen a lot more interaction with our audience and like engagement in the comments and like people who you can tell have listened to past episodes and are making relevant comments. So like just keeping that going. But what about you? What do you have for 2025 or thereafter?
Yeah, it's kind of similar in that sense because I was talking to MJ too over like the weekend. I was like, how can I want to get more views and all that? He's just keep a simple answer that I have come to kind of accept, but just
it's a hard answer.
I mean, just keep doing what you're doing is what he says.
Consistency really is everything we've learned. I mean, we one of the like it was kind of a goal, but it was kind of an unspoken goal. But our whole first year, we didn't miss a single week, and we still have yet to miss a single week, and we were very proud of that. So if we can keep that going, like that's that's super exciting. So
yeah, and being patient is not my strong suit.
Right.
And especially when we both have larger platforms
Mhm.
individually, but those have taken us years
yeah.
to get to. And so like 5+ years, right? So it's like, it's so easy to forget how much time it takes to build something and how much work and effort when you've kind of already been sitting at like a certain point and you're building something from scratch.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah. Because we've done it before. We've both done it.
We just kind of
individually.
forgot how hard
and so
it
you're
is.
like, oh yeah, we got to put in the reps. We got to put in the
Yeah.
time, like continuing to be consistent, putting out quality content, things that we're genuine and care about. Like, because I think that's infectious for listeners. And yeah, then world domination soon after. So.
No, that's what he said. I just have to kind of take it. I mean, he's been doing this obviously longer than me, and it's
Yeah, for sure.
taking that because I'm like, no, there's got to be something else, right, that I can do. And
Unfortunately, not.
It really is just time, man.
Time putting things out there. I think traveling, going to shows is super important, like you guys said. Like I saw that this past weekend where a lot of people put the face, the name, were excited. So that's huge too.
It's also it's almost like, I swear, like we've at this point met so many fellow content creators like in person, and there's something just so different when you connect with somebody in person instead of like on the internet or on, you know, any of the social media apps. Like it's just so different. And those friendships, like now we've met them 2 or 3 times, and it's like, okay, we're like really getting to know these people. And like now when we chit chat in the DMs, it's much more like real conversations or like, you know, and so it makes a really big difference. But somebody did just say in the comments too, it takes so much longer to build a channel on YouTube compared to other platforms. And that is so real. That is so real. There's a reason. I mean, she does the long form YouTube content. I don't because, well, I'm trying to get there. I want to get there.
It's a goal.
It's a goal. That's one of my personal goals for my personal content, but it takes so much, the longer form content, the editing is so like strenuous. And so that's a lot for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking that to MJ this weekend as well. Like he was saying, it just takes a really long time. You have to be just dedicated. There's not like a quick really answer to it. It's just being really consistent and maybe not focusing so much on the views.
Numbers.
Like I was focusing on. He's like, don't care about the views, dude. Just keep doing you. Bring people in. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
So,
like I've gotten to the point now where I care more about seeing the same commenters in each episode. Like that has been something that has been really, really cool that I've noticed just in the last like few months, where it's like, okay, I've seen their name like 7 times now. Like they are really big listeners. Like, wow, I really appreciate like how how much they're engaging with our, like how much they're relating to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so it's at the point now where there's like quite a bit of people that I'm like, you are in every comment section and I love you for that. Like
it's warriors.
So,
I used to do that. I like fell off the train now. I can't keep track of them all.
No, for sure.
No, but it's the quality versus quantity, right?
Yeah.
Would you rather have 10 invested listeners versus 1,000 who are like not paying attention or multitasking or like aren't watching all the episodes or whatever, right? And like you're chasing those relationships, you're chasing that community, and you feel that when you go to these in-person shows, and then just like is tenfold, right? Or whatever you get on a comment on the internet or something. So like that can be really, really special.
Yeah. Like even literally just today, one of our listeners sent to the podcast basically something that I'm like very interested in. I'm a really big herbal tea drinker. And so they like sent me a really cool tea accessory. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you so much. And it was so cool because it's not even reptile related, but they thought of me when they saw it, which is super fun. So
it's really cool.
Building those connections is just really special.
I saw the DM first. I was like, that's for you.
That's really cool. That's really cool that people generally care and generally listen. I didn't really think about that until now, but it's better to focus. I mean, of course, I think about when I'm breeding. I'm always hyper focusing, and I really want to stay small and versus on quality versus quantity. And I'm like, now you guys brought that up. I'm like, wow, I never even
Same
thought
thing
of
with audience. Yeah,
applying that to the audience too. So that's
absolutely
really cool.
That's what we're here for.
It makes me go, well, it's just cool. I never thought about always the breeding, but I'm like, yeah, why not think about that with the podcasting as well?
Wait, so quick random question. What all do you breed? I know you mentioned leopard geckos.
Leopard geckos and ball pythons as well.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, of course, your two like
Nice.
Those common things.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like trying to just do really small numbers of those and maybe do a few other species after
Yeah.
I move. I like the chewies or kahua. They're different
Oh,
pronunciation.
I
Those
love
geckos
chihuahuas.
I like. And I really like the knobtail
I
gecko.
love the knobtails. They're
So
so
cute.
cute.
I don't really see
She's
many
had both of
people.
those.
I love
Oh,
them.
you have them?
I previously had a knobtail. He passed away after about
Mm.
like a year and a half, I think.
Mm.
We don't know what happened, but I had him for like a year and a half, and I freaking loved that species. It was so cool. It was the Levi's. I can't remember.
Yes, that's
The smooth knobtail.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I had him, and then I currently do have a Chihuahua gecko named Scooby.
Oh, cool. So you have both those? Yeah. Those are just kind of some little bit other species I want to kind of get into.
Yeah, I love the Chihuahuas. Mine's a little crazy, but I love him.
They're neat. I like the Pine Islands with all of that pink in there. I really am just attracted visually to that.
Yeah,
so.
mine has a lot of like the reddish brown, like rust around his face. It's so beautiful. I love their colors and their cute little tails. I love their tails.
I think I just saw them at a show. Somebody brought them up to me. I thought it was super cool. It's like not as big as a lychee, kind of like they were kind of mixed between a lychee and a crescent gecko. And
yeah, 100%.
Just a really cool look. So I've been
yes
into them more. Like I'm moving this summer, so I'm kind of waiting until I get established and all that. So it might not be until later this year or next year or something like that. Yeah. So
I love the lychees too. I'm a big lychee fan.
They're just so big and they're kind of
cool.
They just scare me.
They can definitely be scary. That I don't blame you one bit for that. But
and they're just kind of like
monkeys.
Yeah,
they're fat. Like they kind of are fast and they just like jump and I'm like, whoa, it kind of takes me off guard. So
for sure. They also have like the really loud like vocal stuff going on too. So you got a lot of that.
Got a lot of that. Oh, you have good taste. Expensive taste, unfortunately. Everything that I like is like super pricey. So I have
pricey stuff.
Yeah, for the knobtails, I like the albino and powerless pilbara ones that really like
cool
bright orange. So yeah, I'll probably.
I love those guys. I would love to get back into some of the more Australian gecko species. There's so many unique ones.
You don't really see them. Like I didn't see any today at the Southeast. So I'm like, okay, this would be kind of cool. Just something different that
No, they're so cool. Like, what is it? The spiny-tailed geckos as well. I love those guys. Those are really neat. There's a lot of species I want to get into eventually, man.
Add to the list.
Breed them or just keep them as pets. Like this weekend, I saw those really pretty electric blue geckos, and I'm like,
obsessed with those.
I think I want to breed them, but I was like, it'd be super cool to have a active with those guys in there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I know Mason Barnes bred the electric blue day geckos for a long time. I don't know if he still is, but he was for a long time. And there was one time where he was like, "Do you want any?" I was like, maybe. I was like, I don't have enough space right now, but maybe one day.
It's so hard for me, the species that are like very like, and like just take off running. And like day geckos definitely are one of those species compared to a chameleon.
Yes.
That just moves
very slow.
Slow, brightly slow. Those guys are awesome too.
I do have my crested gecko, so I can handle a good splat and jump, but for the most part, I like the chill chameleon vibes.
Pretty
absolutely
cool. And then Tirapipi, Chinese cave geckos are really cool too.
Those are such unique species. I've also is it the Japanese cave geckos that are like the bright oranges?
I don't know if I've seen those. I'll have to look up.
I could be wrong. I can't remember if it's the Chinese cave geckos or the Japanese ones, but
I think it's the Japanese. The Chinese ones are more dark. The yellow kind of necklace.
Yeah, you're right. They're so cool. The orange ones are crazy.
I'll have to look up those. It's like my favorite. I don't want to say it's my favorite color, but I'm attracted to that visually. Reptiles. Like I like the bright orange.
Oh, me too. There's some really cool orange Leo species for sure out there.
That's why I pulled the leopard geckos. I focus on the tangerine.
That's gorgeous. Love that.
As a redhead ginger here, I have a good appreciation for any of the orange animals in the world.
It's one of my favorite things to say at the shows when I have little kids with red hair come up. I'm like, this gecko like
He matches
your
you.
hair. And then they have the biggest smile on their face. It
Aw,
makes them
that's
feel
so
good.
cute.
Well, I feel like some redheads are a little bit, not a lot of people have red hair, so they're a little bit more, shy about it for whatever reason. So it really like makes them smile and feel
2% of the population
That is
has
so
red
tiny.
hair.
2%, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Crazy.
It's a mutation, right? So I have
Yeah.
appreciation for all the reptile species that are mutations, and for orange even better. So
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, we're coming up on the hour, like I promised you guys. So we'll kind of wrap it up here. Was there anything I didn't ask that you want to talk about briefly or anything like that? Definitely have to have you guys come on again and dive into some other topics.
Anytime.
I thought that was
we had
great.
a blast. So thank you so much for having us. I know you go Sunday nights. Our episodes come out Tuesday morning. So anyone who is interested in tuning in, we won't be live, but we'll still be there. So thank you so much. Like this is
so
a
fun.
blast, and we'll hang out in Tinley.
Yes. See you guys at Tinley. And then how we kind of talked about throughout the episode, but how can people follow you guys and follow your content? And
so for the podcast, you can find us anywhere at the Wild Type Podcast. And so that's TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, all the podcast places. And then we are video on Spotify and YouTube. So either one of those. And we do early access episodes each week as well on Patreon or on Spotify. And then you can find me anywhere at Lyssa's Lizards, LYSSA.
Yep. And then I'm Neptune the Chameleon on all the things. So you can find me there.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. I'll take you guys backstage and I'll end this show. It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you for everybody that tuned in. That was a great episode. Really excited to see the future of the podcasting and the reptile hobby, especially with us women out there. So thank you guys for all your support. And I'll see you guys next week, same time and same place. So have a great rest of your week.